The Referral Navigator Limited Series Podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Tockman. Welcome to the Referral Navigator Limited Series Podcast. Today on the call, I have Jim Cassel. Jim's going to talk with us about how to be a great investment banker, but more so about how to be a great leader of investment bankers. How do you lead people on your own team in order to be better at generating business? This podcast is not about how to be a great investment banker. This podcast is about how do you lead professionals who are investment bankers to be even better at origination. That's really two sources. Number one, getting referrals from the clients that you already have. And number two, getting referrals from other professionals that are not your clients. Those are the two things we'll mostly focus on today. Jim, thank you for being on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for asking me to join you.
So happy to have you. Let's get started with some of the basics, the groundwork. Tell everybody what you want them to know about your firm and what makes you referable. Why would a client or a professional want to refer to Cassel Salpeter?
So Cassel Salpeter is a South Florida-based investment banking firm. We have about 15 professionals. Our practice is a lower middle market practice, which is generally selling businesses in the $10 to $250 million enterprise value. Many of those are family-owned businesses, which is very important for referrals because it's family-related. We also raise capital. We do advisory work, fairness opinions, valuation work, solvency opinions, and then we have a special situations group, which is helping companies in trouble. Our work is primarily in the domestic U.S., most of which is probably east of the Mississippi, but we've done work all over the country. As a firm, we're generally industry agnostic, although we do have two industry groups, healthcare broadly defined and aviation. People like myself, because we're old, do a lot of stuff. So I've never really focused on one industry, although I've probably worked on more healthcare related biotech, device, services, healthcare deals than others, but we and our team work on all kinds of projects except real estate. We joke we're the only South Florida-based investment bank that doesn't do real estate.
Thanks so much, Jim. In terms of the number of years that your firm has been doing deals, and just on the deal side, sort of the bigger deals, which I assume are the M&A type deals, the sell side M&A and the raising capital, roughly how many deals has your firm done, or how many you on average do per year?
So this firm, Cassel Salpeter, is 13 years old. Prior to this, my partner, Scott Salpeter, and myself had a similar firm for 8 years in which we sold to Ladenburg Thalmann. So in the last 25 years, the group has been together, myself and Scott and some of the others. We're generally doing somewhere between 6 and 10 M&A deals or capital raise deals a year. Might be one or two more, might be a little less. Some of the bigger deals that we do, can be the last few years have been a couple $100 million in, size deals. We were involved locally last year in the sale of BrandsMart, which was a $230 million deal. And then we do smaller deals. It depends on the opportunity, where we can add value and help the companies.
Thanks so much. And it's a family affair in the way that I think I mean that there are children of the two named partners in the firm. Tell us about Philip and Laura and some of the other directors and managing directors on the team.
The firm was founded by myself and Scott Salpeter. It's funny because I met Scott through his father. I was back in the days of practicing law. I was actually Scott's father's lawyer, which is how we originally met. We were joined probably 10, 11 or 12 years ago. My son, Philip, and Scott's daughter, Laura, joined within a few weeks of each other from very different backgrounds, Laura being a lawyer, Philip having been with Alvarez and Marcel and a private equity firm doing consulting, but they both joined us. And then we've got others on the team, Joey Smith, who does primarily aviation, but aviation in other areas. We've got 3 colleagues who work in the biotech area. led by Ira Lederman and Deborah Gieb and Marjorie Fishbein. They're very well seasoned and, bankers with substantial expertise. And then we've got a team of others who we work closely with, whether it's in the valuation area, supporting that whole group.
Great. And then the types of businesses that you work with, again, would be sort of lower middle market. The deal transaction size, I think that you mentioned already. So that would be the enterprise value of if it's a sell side deal.
Correct.
You told us about. And then the types of professionals that generally make good referral sources for you. We covered, of course, the clients themselves. You help John Doe sell his business. He becomes a referral source for you to other people that he knows who might want to sell their business or raise capital. Aside from the clients, what types of professionals make good referral sources for the folks inside your firm? What professional categories are they in?
Well, there's a little bifurcation there, and I'll specifically answer that question. Some of those referral sources might refer valuation work. That might be one group versus M&A. That might be another. So I would say the single largest group of referral sources as a group would probably be lawyers. It could be accountants, and it could be wealth managers. Those would be the three biggest groups. Now, having said that, insurance agents might on occasion have an opportunity. A lot of times it's the best referral sources are trusted professionals of other people. And those trusted professionals are the kind of people who can refer to us and who we can refer back to and have a relationship with. And so I would say those are the biggest three categories. I would tell you that 99% of this firm's business is inbound referral. So we have to build relationships so people will refer to us, so we walk in credible.
You are in the right place, Jim. The Referral Navigator podcast, 99% referral based. I love it. Thank you for sharing that and those numbers. And now let's talk a little bit about the heart of the matter. The subject matter of our podcast is about how do you as a leader help the people on your team to be better at generating referrals. Now there's half of that, which is making sure they're doing a great job. That makes them referable. That's not really the subject matter of our podcast, as I think our audience already knows. We're not asking a lawyer how to be a good lawyer. We're not asking an investment banker how to be a good investment banker. So
that's a good thing. That's a good thing because I'm not sure I can answer that question. So let's go to the easier questions.
Thank you. So the question really is not how to be referable, but how do you go and get referrals if you are referable? So let's start with maybe the harder one, because we'll get back to the lawyers and accountants and wealth managers and others later. Well, let's start with maybe the harder one. How do you get the people on your team, maybe Scott or Philip or Ira or Joey or others, how do you lead them to be better at generating referrals from the clients? How do you get them to get the clients to introduce you, to invite you, to bring you along on their outings, to invite them to their events, invite you to their events? How do you get the people on your team to get referrals from clients?
So I look at referral sources as a couple of buckets. One bucket is our existing clients and getting more work from those existing clients, which is sort of the question you're asking. The next one is to get referrals from those clients. Then we could put in the third bucket, the group, which is new people who you don't have business from and developing relationships there. So obviously, we encourage our people to develop relationships with the people they're working with. So if hypothetically I brought someone into the firm and one of my colleagues is working with them, they need to develop that relationship. It's as important to the firm that they develop that relationship because it can't always be coming through me. So if they do a good job, then what is a good job? We teach them to be responsive. Sometimes as simple as returning a phone call or an email, because some people don't refer phone calls and don't respond with emails relative, to respond to emails and are not responsive. But developing, even calling those people up and grabbing a coffee with them, they may have, especially now that we've come out of the pandemic and we can get back to like seeing people live and in the flesh, which is amazing. But, having a coffee with them, having lunch with them, developing a one-on-one relationship. because it's not enough to just do a great job. Because I almost view it as like a Greyhound bus. When we leave the station, the next guy comes in to try to grab our client. And many of our clients use multiple service providers. So developing that personal relationship, doing a great job, helps you get more work from them. I talk to our people about learning what your client does. It's not enough just to churn out paperwork, but to show there's interest and find out we're doing one thing, but as you develop that relationship, try to understand other things they're doing so that we can potentially bring one of our colleagues in to introduce them, or find out where their other needs are, where we may be able to refer them to someone who can help them. Because it's not just enough, you can't just ask for work. I mean, you can, depending on your personality, but it's not about what I need, I try to teach our people, it's about what the client needs. And the client may need, it's funny, I'll give an example. So a referral source, not a client, but a referral source moves from New York to Miami, lawyer with a big law firm. I've become friendly with them. I went out to dinner with him when he came into town with his wife. So now his wife has a friend, my wife, and they're calling the referrals they're looking for is, where do I get my dry cleaning done on Miami Beach? Where do I, where do I take my dog? Or I need a doctor or something like that. You build that personal relationship, you spend time with them, clients, referral sources, and you then can, they know why they know you're in business. They know you need business. Sometimes you have to remind them of that. There's no harm in asking in the right way. You can't call every day. And I tell my people, you build relationships, you spend time with them, you do a great job, and you'll get more internal work. That's one thing. The second part is what you asked also, was how do you get them to refer you to others? And, it's many years ago, I was in an insurance agent's office, and the insurance company industry is so much better than most industries. There are so many books and tapes. In those days, I'm going to date myself, they were cassette tapes. I used to grab the cassette tapes from them, and this was an Equitable agency, and I'd listen to them in the car, looking for one pearl of wisdom on how to do it, how to get business. And one of the things they talk about with insurance agents, it's marketing the affluent, and part of it is, it's not about me, it's asking what they need, helping them out. And then if there's something you can do for them, do it. So with your existing clients, they have friends. If you get socially friendly with them, they may be going out to drinks with 3 other people and they may invite you. And when they do that, you've gone from 1 to 4. And you have to make the time to do that. On weekends, I encourage our people to go out and, get friendly with the people working with it. They may get invited to birthday parties with kids. I have it's grandkids, them it's kids. But, just developing those relationships, spending time, not just in the firm, when you're working whatever hours it is, but outside the firm, getting that kind of stuff. As you develop those relationships, you can then ask them. And there's nothing wrong with sitting with certain professionals and people you work with and saying, look, I've done this for you. I'm trying to build my business. You can't do this in a threatening way or an obnoxious way or an arrogant way. But do you have any friends maybe you could introduce me to who might, what we do, who might sell their business? And people will do that. The accounting people, they're happy to make that introduction if they're comfortable with you. But first, you got to get them comfortable with you. You want to really try to build that relationship with them. And then you can ask them to introduce you to other parties.
Let me recap some of the things that I heard. I was taking some notes as you were talking. You made a lot of great points. One thing that you started with that I think is excellent that I want to reiterate is that Jim encourages the people working on the deals to build that relationship, even if they weren't the originator. So this is a great lesson for all of the managing partners, managing directors, the big originators within any legal, financial, tax firm. A great lesson that Jim just gave to you all. is that you really need to make sure that the people who are coming in and working on the deals that might be spending more time than you are with those clients, that it's their relationship. Give them that, empower them, encourage them, that no matter who brought it in, that they need to work on it. Then Jim also mentioned,
Jeff, if I can interrupt you on that, something that's also very important there, the originator and the system at the firm has to be set up to encourage that. Because, I will tell you, as a young lawyer bringing in lots of business, I was very nervous of not being involved in micromanaging everything for fear that I would lose those relationships. And you don't build young people and help them grow by the person at the top or who's bringing it in, smothering them to control it. They got to get over it. And you got to support those people and let them have that opportunity and let them gain by it, because if it works well, everybody does better. If it doesn't work well, the people at the top do better and the people at the bottom leave. And that's not good. Having said that, also, some people will never originate business other than maybe through a relationship they got just working the matter. Some people just don't do it, and they're not comfortable. And part of it is finding people's comfort zone, because you can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. And they may be a role player, and there's a place for them. But even the role players can help develop, and you've got to encourage them to help develop and maintain the existing relationships. Because it's easier to get business from an existing relationship than from a new one. And not everybody can go into a cocktail party, meet someone they've never met before in their life, and take business away from it. But everybody, if they do a good job, should be able to deal with people on a daily basis and first keep the business, retain the business, so they just say, oh, I'm not going to take it away. And retention is just as important as new, because once it's in, it's your business. But you got to service it properly so you don't lose that relationship.
Thank you. So Jim's really encouraging everybody listening to, if you're the leader of this group of financial, tax, legal type of professionals, and you want them to be better at origination, to really empower them, to not to smother them, but to encourage them, and even to hold them accountable, get them to agree they're going to do it and ask them what happened. And included within that is encouraging the people who are spending time with the clients, the people executing the deals or doing the work, to learn about the clients, to learn about their lives outside of the scope of whatever deal or transaction or matter they're dealing with, to show interest in them socially, to learn about other things that are important in their lives, to get to build a social relationship. Maybe inviting them to socialize with you might then encourage them to invite you to socialize with them and their spouses or friends or family or kids. And then Jim mentioned that the insurance industry as an example, and I had some experience myself, Jim, working in the insurance industry. So I absolutely agree with what you're talking about. There's a lot of training on business development in the bigger insurance companies, and that you, I think, are leading by example here by telling that story to us here today. I'm sure you've told it before to people on your own team, that they should be looking for new ideas, that they can read books, or today would be watching a podcast perhaps, where they can look for great ideas, great little nuggets on how to interact with the clients, that are always looking to, as you were, sharpen the saw and get even better at something like this. Let's go on now to talk a little bit about getting referrals from professionals. We covered some of the types and categories of professionals that you specifically mentioned. That would be lawyers, accountants, wealth managers, which I think would be the top three, the trusted professional advisor relationship. So assuming that all of the people that join your team are really reasonably bright, all 15 or so on the team are bright enough, you wouldn't have to explain to them for too long that lawyers, accountants, and wealth managers make good referral sources. I think our audience could understand that right on its face. but understanding that those people make good referral sources and then doing something about it to actually turn them into really productive referral sources, that's something much different. So how do you go beyond explaining, hey, these are the best types of referral sources, build relationships with these people, to go beyond to say, I'll encourage them, but tell us a little bit more. How exactly do you encourage the people on your team to build relationships with these types of professionals? What type of training or systems or steps or language do you give them? How do you get the people on your team to build better referral relationships with the legal, tax, and financial professionals that you mentioned?
I talked to our team about outbound referrals from us. And one of the challenges that we have as a firm is because so much of our business is inbound referral, we can't just take those as an example. If a lawyer sends us a deal and they need an insurance agent, I can't go to my list of insurance agents. I need to go back to the lawyer and say, the person you referred to me needs an insurance agent. Who would you recommend? Because I need to protect that referral source. Because if I don't, and I refer them to my friendly insurance guy, the next thing you know, he's referring them or she's referring them to somebody, other lawyer, and I'm getting a call from the lawyer who referred it to me. It says, like, what is going on here? So I talk to our people about that. Whenever we get an inbound referral, making sure we protect that referral. But having said that, we do get occasion to refer out. You know, you might meet a friend who needs a lawyer that didn't come, that came directly. And one of the things that I try to do with our people, sometimes I get those, and I'll ask the others in the firm, we need an accountant. Who do you think we should go to? Who do we owe something to? Because I will tell you, there was an accounting firm years ago where I would call it the largest rainmaker in the firm. If you showed up at lunch, Jeff, as I might have on more than one occasion, he would pull out, and I'm going to date myself, a 3x5 card that would have a little T on it. And he would have the list of the referrals he sent me and the referrals I sent him. And he literally kept and tracked it. Now, I'm sure on the back of that card, he had the fees both ways, but he didn't show me that portion. It was more, he had sent me these three. Now, in his case, he really did it on a firm-wide basis. He knew his firm had sent us these, and we had sent this to his firm. And different firms work differently. You got to figure that out, because there's some firms where you send it to the firm, and that's great. There are other firms you need to send it to the right person. And you could have two people at the same law firm who share this. I call them wall mates. They share the same wall, but they don't share the business. So you also have to identify who are the right people. And for the younger people, you want to develop relationships. And I encourage our people to develop relationships with some of those younger people. Of course, some of us have longer term relationships. But what I'm really trying to do with our people is get them to focus on who you should go to and how you can send them referrals, because there's nothing better than getting referrals back than by sending referrals to someone. That's so crucial. The other thing is I talk to them about being a resource. You know, if someone, say, look, even if you can't send me, and I get these calls and we get them all the time, even if you don't have business to send to someone, if you get to know a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, and they have a client who has a question, and I have people who call me and say, I can't send you this deal, but I got the following question. If you take the time to help them, not what's in it for me, but help them, which makes it better for you. Sometimes they received a letter, an engagement letter from another banking firm. Is this normal? Is this and I'll give them knowing I'm not going to see this deal, but you help them. If you help them at some point down the road, it'll come back to your benefit. So I encourage people to spend the time to, if you want to develop relationships with these referral sources, you might be reading a newspaper or a trade rag or something. They may be interested in something. Clip that article and send it to them with it. Now, today, in the old days, you'd send it with a little note, dating myself, and a paper clip, put it in an envelope. You'd rip it out of a magazine. I used to walk off of airplanes with all these ripped out things to send to people with little notes on them. Now you do it with an email. You cut and paste. And I do encourage people PDF it so they don't have to go online, make it easy for them. because sometimes they can't get it's behind a paywall or what have you. PDF it, send it to them. Thought you might find this of interest. It's a way to remind them that you're thinking of them, trying to help them. And people like to help people who are helping them. And that's not with your hand out. It's not, brashly asking for something. It's just remembering that, oh, I was out to dinner with someone. I was out to lunch. I was on a phone call. I remember Jeff said something. And what you're really telling them is you care about, and I tell people, you got to show people you care about them and you are listening to them. And I could give you a whole lecture on listening. As my father used to tell me, there's a reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Then I've heard another quote, no one's ever learned anything by talking.
Thank you so much, Jim. Let me reiterate some of the things that I heard, and we'll go on to a little bit more even. One of the things you talked about, which I want to emphasize, is protecting the referral source. If we can call the referral source the goose and the client is the golden egg, then we all were supposed to learn when we were little kids that we got to protect the golden goose. You can't kill the goose. So if the referral source, let's say a lawyer refers to you, and then the client ends up needing a wealth manager, you got to go back to that lawyer and find his wealth manager or his multiple recommendations for that client. So you protect the relationship of the original referral source at all times. And then also, this is a nice crossover between how you generate a better relationship with the clients and how you generate more referrals from professionals, is that if you're talking with your clients beyond the scope of the deal that you're working with to find out what they might need in their personal lives, in their business, with other transactions, maybe with real estate or insurance in their personal lives, then you're going to be the one that helps that client, and that builds your relationship with them and makes them more likely to refer. And at the same time, you're going to find other opportunities to send more referrals to the professionals that are in your network if you are proactive, not just waiting for your client to say, hey, I need a realtor, but asking them, when's the next time you're planning on doing a real estate transaction, even though it has nothing to do with the work that you have to do for them. Going beyond the scope is a great crossover between generating a better relationship with clients and helping professionals at the same time. I had spoken actually just a couple weeks ago, and you might know of this too, Jim. There are now firms in law firms that have a referral coordinator. You talked about sometimes it's coordinated through one person, this guy with the card. Then they have people who are in those positions to be the referral coordinator. This was in a personal injury firm, as I'm sure you can imagine why they want to keep track even more so than every other type of firm. And to be a resource to people, adding value, even if you can't give that attorney a referral to a prospective client, which might be the best way, as you said, to get a referral back, you still might be able to provide a resource. You still might be able to introduce him to an accountant or introduce him to an insurance professional or introduce him to somebody that can help him with real estate if that's what he's looking for. Be the one that makes introductions professionally and provides ideas, as you mentioned with these articles, in addition to just thinking, hey, if I can give you a referral, you'll give me a referral back. That's obviously true, but a little simplistic. So go beyond that. You might not have a referral to give to that attorney or wealth manager every day, but you might have a good piece of information or a professional introduction that you can make for them. Let's talk a little bit more about how you go about doing this. In a firm like yours, about 15 people, how do you facilitate this encouragement? You mentioned that you encourage people, you tell people, you said that a few times. How do you go about doing that? Some people might do a weekly meeting that's just about business development, or get together and talk about it once a quarter. There might be a tracking mechanism where you have a document that reviews all of the business development. You get them to share ideas with each other. How do you facilitate, as you mentioned, this encouragement and what you tell them to do? How do you actually technically, logistically make it happen where you're leading these people to be better at business development?
I would tell you we could do a lot better job than we do on this. It takes time. Everybody's busy. It's not the priority, in terms of the tracking. We should track it. We should hold people more accountable. We don't. It's more, we're dealing with professionals, so we expect them to be professional. We give them ideas and support in the sense that we'll send around if we see functions coming up so we can let them know what functions we think might be worthwhile going to. And obviously part of it is funding, us willing to pay for them to go to those things. It's obviously their time, but, sometimes there's a cost involved in going to functions. It's talking to them about what they're doing. I mean, I do sit down with our people on occasion and go through what I would call their target list. But before we get to a specific, here's a list of 20 people I'm talking to, I try to take a step back and talk to them about what are the right kind of relationships to develop. And, for most of our people, they're blessed that we've got a good business here that we don't need. I mean, we're always looking for business tomorrow, but we can have a long-term perspective and be fine, because none of us are smart enough to know. And I explained to them, you have to be patient. You don't know whether you're going to meet someone or talk to someone or get a referral tomorrow for someone who's going to sell their business tomorrow, or you're going to meet someone tomorrow and it'll be 5 years before they sell their business. You don't know whether when you meet a referral source, they're going to have a potential referral for you the next day, or it's going to be 6 months from now. I talk to people about prioritizing the people they're in touch with, because you've got to remind people you exist. I'm of the belief that if you haven't had a touch with a person in a certain amount of time, it's sort of like the flu shot. You get that shot, and over time, the half-lives keep going down. And, at some point, the immunity's gone. Well, with referral sources, you can't just see them today and see them in 3 years and expect if something came in 2 years from now, they're going to think of you, because there are other people. We have competitors. So it's finding that right group of people, evaluating who the resources are, or referral sources that could be great, making sure that, and I've seen people tier them. I once went to a very funny speech at an ACG meeting where a head of business development at a private equity firm talked about how he tiered people, A, B, C, and D. The A people he touched base with monthly, the B people quarterly, the C people, 6 months, and the D people if he had some extra time. He got himself in trouble because everybody now knew where they fit into the bucket, because I knew how often he contacted me, which told me how he reviewed me. So I had to give him a little bit of crap. But there's some real, value to that. You only have so much time. So, getting people to isolate, to prioritize, to get involved and I encourage people, I will tell you, like my son, who's obviously one of our colleagues, he's involved in a couple of groups that meet monthly of business professionals. And they pick, 10 people, a realtor, an insurance person, a lawyer, an accountant, and they sit around and they specifically talk about, how can I refer business to the others? What's going on? Who can I introduce them to? And then follow up. But with our people, I sit them down, I talk to them about some of these different things that I've seen that have worked, but it's not one size fits all. I mean, I've seen people be very successful business generators by building an expertise. For some, it's personality or whatever, building a certain expertise, going out and sending out newsletters, writing articles, speaking on it, and they generate their referrals because they're perceived as the go-to person with certain expertise. So, some people do great at cocktail parties. I talk to people about where they're comfortable, because it's not where I'm comfortable. It doesn't matter where I'm comfortable. That's not their problem. It's where they could be comfortable and are willing to spend the time, and they understand the importance in all of the professions we've discussed, lawyers, accountants, insurance people. The people who rise to the top developing business are crucial. I mean, they're the lifeblood of the business. You can hire expertise, but you can't necessarily hire this. And this takes time to develop. And some people will never get it. And that's okay. But the others have to get it. And you have to encourage them and let them, make mistakes, taking some wrong business, because it's also business evaluation. It's not just a function of, I got a referral. You've got to evaluate it and decide whether you're the right person for that. You can't just take it when I say you're the right, but the firm is the right firm for that. And then if it's not the right firm, maybe be able to refer that, depending on where it came from, to another source that might be the right person. Because, referring something out that we weren't the right person for, obviously coordinating with the referral source so we don't cause problems there, is so important too. It helps you later on. I've seen business coming from people we sent to someone else because they just appreciated the fact that we were honest with them. And it could be we couldn't get it done in the time they wanted it. We might be the wrong pricing, or we just may not have the right expertise. So I talk to all of our people about doing that.
So Jim, thank you for that. I noticed a few things that you mentioned there. One is that it's a really good idea to support the people on your team to join monthly groups and organizations where they discuss referrals in a proactive manner. Encourage them to be patient, encourage them to prioritize and rank and prioritize their best client and professional referral sources. Be organized, actually track that in a CRM or a spreadsheet. And then as the leader, you got to support these folks who are out there. You got to support them and encourage them and teach them and hold them accountable as well. Review their target list with them. Help them go over what makes someone an A, B, C, or D. And that it's okay to make mistakes and that not every referral is perfect. And you can find opportunities from even imperfect referrals because you might be able to, with respect to the original referral source, of course, refer a client out to someone else, and that can win you a favor with somebody new. Mostly that it's about the personality style of the person that you're actually leading, making sure that their business development efforts fit their personality style in order to be held accountable. That makes sense. And then, Jim, you had mentioned that there might be some things that you might want to do a little bit better in terms of tracking and holding people accountable. There's some room for improvement there. Let's fast forward and go to our second step, which is about how to do an even better job, maybe something that you want to change, a goal for you in terms of being the leader that's getting people to do better with business development. What do you want to accomplish in the future that you haven't accomplished so far? What might you want to change?
I think the biggest thing is to help sort of the mid-level group start to generate. And, part of it is I always talk about when I'm going to functions, I should be taking them with me more often than I do. And it's interesting because there's a certain group, of people who, of course, I know I've been in Miami all my life, but there's that younger group, that there's a lot of groups that are younger behind me now where I may connect with them, but they will connect with them. So helping them get out, I certainly need to take them out, not only encourage them to go on their own, but in some cases to take them with me. As part of that also is to introduce them to people. And I try, not enough, to introduce them. But for instance, if I'm going out to lunch with a lawyer, I really need to say to that lawyer, if they're my contemporary, bring with you one of your younger people and let me bring one of mine and make that connection. Because what that does for our younger people is they're endorsed by the more senior person on the other side, as well as myself, to say, this is a good guy. We're willing to spend some time, have lunch with them or have coffee or what have you. And then encourage, and here goes to the tracking we don't do a good job of, seeing if my younger person, our younger person, then follows up with that person. Because it's not enough to just show up. You've got to follow up. And follow-up can be another coffee. Follow-up can be that email we talked about. Follow-up can be a phone call. Follow-up can be a referral. Or they may even run into that person in a social setting, but because they met them when we had that lunch or that coffee, it puts them in a different light with that person. They know them. It's not a stranger on the other side of the table who they've never met. So it's a couple of things. I need to do more of that, and then I need to hold them accountable. Tracking, what are you doing? And, some people have time. They can make, 5 calls a week to new people, or they can go out 5 times a week. Some people don't have the time because they have work to do. And people, I understand, have families. And some of our younger people have, younger kids. And that raises an issue generationally where I will tell you the expectation when I was raising my kids was very different than watching my own kids raise their kids with their spouses in terms of having time and when you can market and do those things.
Heard some things that you thought you weren't doing so well, maybe some mistakes and errors in terms of not doing as good enough job and taking the sort of middle range folks within the team with not doing a good enough job to introduce them to let's say, for example, an attorney might be a managing partner or a practice group chair, might bring along a younger partner or even an associate with them while you bring along someone from your team. That sounds like a good part of the action plan. And then use that word accountability, which I love as a business consultant working with my clients. I'm there with my clients every single week to say, basically, what are you going to do this week? And then next week I hold them accountable. So accountability is absolutely something I endorse for sure. Something else that you might do differently as we're working towards wrapping up. We talked about some of your strengths mostly. We talked about some of your goals, what you're trying to accomplish. Talked about maybe a mistake or two. What's something else that you might change in order to reach that higher level, to make the firm live on in perpetuity beyond you and your other named partner? What's something that you're planning to do differently to grow the team and make a whole bunch of great new originators out of the people that are not yet great originators on the team?
I think the thing we're doing there, and to a certain extent, it's been with my son, who's works very closely. I do marketing trips to New York all the time. I now take him with me on those trips and do just what I mentioned, which was if I'm meeting with one person, ask them to bring a couple of their colleagues. It's also letting him and some of the others do the follow-up instead of me doing all the follow-up. When we go and meet those people, instead of me writing a follow-up, it's nice to meet you, this is what we do, encouraging them to write those, copy me, and so people start to see that next generation, get comfortable with them. And then also, when we're working on deals, let them take over. I use an example with Laura. When she and I work on deals, I may have brought the relationship in, but I let her do 95% of it, and she's comfortable enough to come back to me when she needs me, but I let her run with it. Letting people run with it, not micromanaging, let them make decisions. They're going to make some wrong decisions. That's okay, as long as nothing's fatal or costly. Being there to help them when they need it, bailing them out, and me taking the responsibility for when they make a mistake, because, so I don't throw them under the bus. And they learn from that. And with that, people on the outside see that these are really good people. They can do a great job. And then I tell people, don't call me, call them. But I'm at a comfortable point in my life. Not a lot of people, a lot of rainmakers don't do that. And part of it is how a firm is set up. Some firms are set up, eat what you kill. I've been with a firm having lunch with 3 partners at a law firm where when they all give us a speech. It's one firm, it doesn't matter. But as we're walking to the valet, one whispers in my ear, but call me. And I try to do it differently. I whisper in their ear, call them, because it's one less phone call for me to have to deal with, one less problem. And, be there to support them, which means the people you're saying call them also have to be comfortable enough where they think I can be supportive in a pitch. Our people, I think, are very comfortable that if they're pitching something and they think I can add value, they call me in. They don't try to do it on their own, which is also a mistake because you're doing it for the firm. You got to figure out who the best people are, but you got to be comfortable with that. Not everybody's comfortable with that. I will tell you, as a young lawyer who generated business, I was absolutely not comfortable with that. I wanted to control it. I wanted to have it. It was only when I got to the point where I understood that if I worked with others and gave them the business to work on and they left, I would lose some business. When I got comfortable that I would replace it, that's when you can really grow things. Otherwise, you're limited. You can only run so much business, only have so many relationships. You have to be comfortable with that. I got over it as a lawyer years ago, and here I encourage that. I want them to do it, but I understand with young people, it's not that way. They're trying to build, so it's very important that they do. I watch them take credit for things that I help them bring in. I'm okay with that. Doesn't matter to me, because we're also not an eat what you kill shop. When you're an eat what you kill shop, it's a different story. Then everybody wants their piece of the action. Here, bigger pie, everybody does better. But that's a different philosophy. I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong. It's what I've always believed in.
Thank you so much, Jim, for being on the podcast. We're working on wrapping up. We're going to put a few things up on the screen, some notes from the conversation about different strengths that you have, different ways that you lead people to be great at generating referrals from clients and also from professionals, some goals that you have and concerns and what you're planning to perhaps do even a little bit better and more in the future. And then, of course, we're going to put up on the screen your contact information, name, email, phone number, website, so that people can reach out to you. And of course, I encourage everyone listening to reach out to Jim if you have any questions related to investment banking or advisory work in the middle market, lower middle market type of transaction area. Jim, any final thoughts as we're working on wrapping up here today?
No, Jeff, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for including me on your podcast, and I wish you the best as you grow it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
The Referral Navigator Limited Series Podcast.